Martell Holt speaking out did not come from strength or peace. It came from pressure. It came from years of unresolved anger, regret, and the need to control how the story ends. When people say Martell exposed Melody and Hill Harper, what they are really reacting to is not truth, but timing. This moment did not appear out of nowhere. It was built slowly, over years of public judgment, private failure, and a growing fear of being remembered only for mistakes. Martell did not suddenly decide to tell his truth. He reached a point where silence no longer felt safe to him. At the center of the situation is Melody Shari. For a long time, viewers watched her try to hold a marriage together while being hurt in very public ways. She did not leave quickly. She did not lash out. She stayed hopeful longer than most people would have. When the marriage finally ended, the pain did not stop. It simply changed form. Melody had to rebuild her life while the world watched and judged every step. She learned how to survive without explaining herself. Her silence was not weakness, it was protection. Melody focused on her children, her work, and her growth. She stopped reacting to noise. She stopped trying to prove who she was to people who already made up their minds. That kind of silence does not come from fear. It comes from strength. It comes from knowing that peace matters more than winning arguments. Over time, her calm became louder than any interview could be. She moved forward while others stayed stuck in the past. When the reunion invitation came from the network, it was not an easy decision for Melody. Going back meant facing a chapter of her life she worked hard to close. It meant sitting across from people connected to pain she already processed privately. But Melody also understood something important. Healing does not always mean avoiding the past. Sometimes it means facing it with no emotion left to give. She showed up not to fight, but to close the door fully. Martell received the same invitation, but his mindset was different. For him, the reunion felt like a chance to rewrite the story. He believed that if he spoke clearly, showed emotion, and explained himself, people might finally understand him. What Martell did not understand is that explanations do not erase patterns. Saying sorry does not matter if the behavior never truly changed. Words without growth feel empty to people who have watched the same cycle repeat. When Ariane Curry entered the picture, the tension grew deeper. She had been quiet for a long time. Social media, once active, had gone silent. She carried her own pain, regret, and confusion. Being invited back meant opening herself up to judgment again, but staying silent also meant letting others speak for her. That fear pushed her to show up even when she was not fully ready. She walked into a space filled with old wounds and unfinished emotions. When all three sat together, the room felt heavy. There were no smiles, no warm greetings, just years of unspoken feelings sitting between them. Melody remained calm. She did not raise her voice. She did not attack anyone. Her peace spoke louder than anger ever could. Martell, on the other hand, appeared uncomfortable. His body language showed restlessness. This was not confidence, it was tension. When Melody said she felt nothing looking at Martell, it hit harder than anger ever could. Anger still carries emotion. Indifference does not. Indifference means the healing already happened. It means the other person no longer hold power over your feelings. That moment showed that Melody had already moved on in ways Martell had not. He was still trying to catch up to a place she passed long ago. When Ariane spoke, her words showed conflict. She admitted some fault, but also shifted blame. This reflected someone still trying to understand her role in a painful situation. Melody's response remained controlled and factual. She did not insult, she did not react emotionally, she stated what happened and left it there. That balance showed growth and clarity. Martell struggled during the conversation. He wanted his pain to be seen without fully owning the pain he caused. This has always been the issue. Accountability means accepting consequences without asking for sympathy at the same time. Martell wanted understanding before taking full responsibility. That disconnect was clear to viewers. As the conversation continued, emotions surfaced. Tears appeared, not as performance, but as release. Each person admitted regret in different ways. Melody regretted staying silent for so long. Ariane regretted believing promises. Martell regretted choosing pride over love. These admissions mattered, but they came late. Growth delayed still carries consequences. After the reunion aired, public reaction was intense. Social media split into sides overnight. Some believed Martell was finally being honest. Others felt he was trying to change the story again. Melody became a symbol of quiet strength. Many women related to her restraint and refusal to argue for validation. Martell struggled with the backlash. Praise and criticism came at the same time, creating confusion instead of peace. That confusion led Martell to go live on Instagram. This decision changed everything. During the live session, he suggested that truths were hidden and that others shared blame. He hinted at things without providing proof. This moment is what many people now call the exposure. But exposure without evidence feels like accusation. Instead of clearing his name, Martell created more doubt. Melody chose silence again. She did not respond. She did not defend herself. This frustrated some people, but it showed emotional maturity. She understood that peace does not come from explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Silence became her boundary. Hill Harper's name being mentioned added another level of tension. When respected names are pulled into unclear claims, damage can happen even without proof. Words matter. Martell may have believed he was telling his truth, but truth without care can harm people not directly involved. Hill Harper's silence did not mean guilt, it meant restraint. Ariane watched the fallout quietly. Her tears were not about attention. They were about realizing that this story may never end if everyone keeps feeding it. She turned inward. Writing became her release. For the first time, she began examining her own choices instead of defending them. Growth begins when excuses stop. The public reaction revealed something deeper. People wanted a hero and a villain, but real life is not that simple. Pain does not follow scripts. Healing does not happen on schedule. Truth is often messy. Melody stepping away from reality television was powerful. She chose real life over ratings. That decision spoke louder than interviews ever could. Martell stepping away marked a turning point, but it did not erase the past. Community work and apologies only matter if they are consistent. Redemption is not announced, it is lived quietly. The talk of unseen footage keeps the story alive. People wonder if it will bring clarity or more confusion. But the real truth has always been visible in repeated behavior, not edited scenes. This story is not just about secrets. It is about ego, accountability, and healing. Exposure does not always lead to freedom. Sometimes it leads to more damage. Melody's silence was not avoidance, it was closure. Ariane's reflection was not manipulation, it was growth. Martell is still choosing who he wants to be. In the end, no one wins when pain becomes entertainment. The real test happens when cameras turn off. Closure does not have to be loud. Sometimes the strongest statement is choosing peace and walking away. What many people fail to understand is that closure does not always look loud. Melody stepping back was not avoidance, it was self-respect. After years of explaining, defending, and being judged in public, she reached a point where silence became safety. She had already said everything that mattered through her actions. The businesses she built, the way she raised her children, and the boundaries she kept spoke louder than any reunion chair ever could. Martell, however, was still searching for approval. When someone loses control over how they are seen, fear often follows. His live session did not feel planned or calm. It felt emotional and reactive. He wanted people to know he was human, but he struggled to accept that being human also means accepting consequences without shifting blame. That struggle has followed him for years. The problem with public confessions is that once words are released, they cannot be taken back. Even if intentions are unclear, damage can still be done. By hinting at hidden truths and unnamed actions, Martell opened doors that may never fully close again. People began questioning everyone connected to the story, even those who had already moved on quietly. Hill Harper's name being pulled into the situation caused discomfort for many viewers. Once a respected reputation is linked to rumors, the impact can last even if no proof exists. Silence in moments like this does not always mean guilt. Sometimes it means wisdom. Choosing not to respond can be an act of protection, not avoidance. Meanwhile, Ariane's journey became more personal. Writing gave her space to reflect without pressure. For the first time, she began examining not only what happened to her, but the choices she made along the way. This was not about clearing her image. It was about understanding herself. Growth often begins when excuses end and honesty starts. The audience reaction showed how deeply people crave clear sides. They want a villain and a hero, but real life rarely offers clean lines. Pain overlaps. Responsibility is shared in different ways. Healing looks different for everyone. Melody healed through distance. Ariane healed through reflection. Martell is still learning what healing requires. Producers were reportedly frustrated when Melody refused follow-up specials. From a television point of view, her silence was bad for drama. From a human point of view, it was powerful. She no longer needed platforms to be heard. She had already reclaimed her voice by choosing peace over performance. Walking away from attention is not weakness, it is control. When someone stops responding, they stop feeding the cycle. Melody changed the power balance by refusing to engage. That decision forced others to sit with their own actions without her participation. Martell stepping away from the show marked a shift, but stepping away does not automatically mean growth. Growth shows itself in patterns over time. Quiet work matters more than loud apologies. Redemption is not something you announce, it is something you live when no one is watching. The discussion about unseen footage keeps curiosity alive, but footage alone does not heal people. Truth is not always hidden in clips. Sometimes it is visible in repeated behavior, choices, and reactions. Cameras can capture moments, but they cannot capture intent or growth. At its core, this situation was never just about a marriage or a reunion. It was about identity. Who people become when love fails, who they choose to be when the world is watching, and who they are when the noise fades. Melody chose peace. Ariane chose self-reflection. Martell is still choosing, and that choice will define the next chapter more than any footage ever could. Because in the end, the real truth is not what is exposed on camera. It is what people do when the cameras are gone. The story may not be finished, but it no longer belongs to the audience. It belongs to the people who lived it. And sometimes the most powerful ending is not proving a point, but letting go and moving forward in silence.